How is it that this abusive group has tax exemption? The first thing to make clear is that when the IRS grants tax exemption to a religious organization, they do not first do a thorough and searching investigation of that group, nor is the IRS ever deciding on the validity of the religion in question. Based on a very loose set of guidelines listed in the IRS Tax Code, Section 501c3, if any group applies for nonprofit religious status and meets those criteria, the IRS grants them tax exemption. The Church of Scientology was first incorporated in 1954 and gained 501c3 tax exemption by the IRS soon after. Through the rest of the 1950s and 60s, Hubbard built up numerous churches of Scientology around the world and acted as the central headquarters manager and senior executive officer of the entire structure. Hubbard was personally profiting to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. In today's terms, that would be millions. The church was paying Hubbard a salary and all his family's living expenses on top of that. Plus, Hubbard would regularly just take money from individual church bank accounts and call them loans. By 1967, the IRS had caught on and done a full investigation, resulting in the church's tax exemption being revoked and Scientology labeled a commercial activity. For 26 years, the Church of Scientology fought in the court system, never paying a dime in taxes. By filing thousands of individual lawsuits against the IRS by individual Scientology parishioners, as well as waging an effective counter-PR campaign against the IRS in the late 1980s, the Church of Scientology managed to do what very few others have ever done in history. They wore down the IRS's administrators and legal budget. In 1991, David Miscavige met with the IRS commissioner and got him to agree to review the church's tax-exempt status in exchange for the church dropping all its lawsuits and not smearing the IRS in the media anymore. 2 years later, they'd hammered out a confidential agreement and the church regained its tax exemption. The agreement saved the church tens of millions of dollars in back taxes. As shown by John Oliver in late 2015 when he gained tax exemption for a church he started on his HBO television show, it was named Our Lady of Perpetual Exemption, it is ridiculously easy to gain tax exemption. The IRS is a vast bureaucracy that was restructured in 1998, and due to a congressional oversight, they eliminated 4 regional directors whose job was to oversee and investigate tax-exempt organizations for fraud or tax abuse. So this function has not been filled for years. This has worked in favor of all churches out there, so there's not been any real pressure brought to bear on the IRS or Congress to fix this issue. This leaves only 2 people who actually have the power to investigate and revoke tax exemption for religious groups: the Secretary of the Treasury and the IRS Commissioner. It's not impossible to get these people to act, but it takes a great deal of pressure on them and evidence of overt criminal activity for a religious group to come to their attention and for them to invest the time and resources to investigate and deal with that group. This is why the IRS is slow to act and why it's so hard to get Scientology's tax exemption revoked.